stayed over at my friend's place and we couldn't leave the bedroom after 9 p.m. I found out why. We'd been buddies for 12 years, and in all that time, I'd never crashed at his place. "So, what's with the invite now?" I asked, slinging my backpack over my shoulder as he opened the screen door. "My folks are heading out," he said quickly, almost tripping over the words. "Thought it's finally time you checked out my place." His house wasn't just some regular home. It was a sprawling old farmhouse, all weathered wood and peeling paint, sitting on a patch of Nebraska land like it had grown out of the prairie itself. Ancient cottonwood trees loomed over the property, their shadows stretching across the dusty yard. Inside, the air smelled of aged timber, furniture polish, and something else. A faint, earthy scent, like damp soil after a storm. His mom was a wiry woman with a tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. She flitted around the shadowy rooms, offering sodas and chips with a jittery energy. His dad sat in a worn recliner, silent, a big guy with deep-set eyes that tracked us as we moved through the house. I caught his mom muttering something to him, sharp and hushed, but the words didn't carry at T7. His parents left. "So, what's the plan?" I asked, tossing my bag onto the floor of his room. His bedroom was a slice of normal in that eerie house. Band posters on the walls, a messy bed, a gaming console hooked up to a flat screen. It was the only spot that didn't feel like it belonged to another century. "Pizza, gaming, the usual," Ethan said. He crouched to start the console, moving with a stiffness I couldn't quite place. Like he was holding something back. We scarfed down pizza and played games, and for a while, I forgot about the house and the heavy quiet that seemed to lurk in its corners. For a bit, it was just us, the glow of the screen, and the sounds of virtual explosions. Then, just before 9, he paused the game. "Hey dude," he said, staring at the controller in his hands, avoiding my eyes. "There's this weird rule my parents have." "Weird rule?" "Yeah." He looked up, his face dead serious. "After 9 p.m., we gotta stay in here, in the bedroom. No leaving. Not for the bathroom, not for a drink. Nothing. Door stays shut until morning." I searched his face for a hint of a joke, but there was none. "You're messing with me, right? What if I gotta take a leak?" "Go now," he said, his voice flat. He nodded toward an empty water bottle on his desk. "After 9, use that." My laugh caught in my throat. "Man, that's nuts." "Why?" He shrugged, but it was forced, unnatural. "They're just real paranoid about security. Old house, They say it's creaky." Creaky. I knew he was lying, but I didn't know why. Downstairs, a grandfather clock started chiming the hour, and Ethan's head whipped toward the door. Bong. 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 He was up before the 9th chime, crossing the room to shut the door. He slid a heavy deadbolt into place, the sound sharp and final. "There," he said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "We're good." "Ethan, what the hell's going on?" I asked. "Nothing, man. Just a weird rule," he said, still not looking at the door. He cranked up the game's volume until it filled the room. But I wasn't watching the screen. My eyes were on the locked door, and a chill settled in my stomach. The house was quiet again, but it wasn't the same. This was a watchful quiet, a waiting quiet. Something was out there, and we were locked in here, waiting with it. An hour passed, and the house stayed silent. Ethan's tension eased a bit, and he played with a forced focus that didn't fool me. I was getting annoyed at the whole thing, at how absurd it felt. "You gotta tell your parents this is how you end up with a kid who's gonna snap," I said. He gave a weak grin. "No kidding." Then a sound came from downstairs. A steady, muffled thump, like footsteps on the hardwood in the living room. "What's that?" I whispered. Ethan kept playing, eyes glued to the screen, fingers mashing buttons like he hadn't heard. "It's nothing." Old house creaking. That's not creaking, Ethan. The sound stopped. My pulse pounded in my ears. Then a new noise started. A scraping, like something heavy being dragged across the floor below. Slow and uneven, I muted the TV. That's definitely not the house, I said. Ethan set the controller down, his face pale in the flickering light of the screen. Just ignore it, Noah. Please. It stops if you ignore it. What? What is it? What stops? Before he could answer, a voice came from the hallway, faint at first, just beyond our door. Ethan? Honey. I froze. It was his mom's voice. Ethan, sweetie, your dad and I got back early. I made you boys some brownies. Open the door. I looked at Ethan. He was white as a sheet, staring at the door like it was the edge of a cliff. He raised a shaking finger to his lips and shook his head. Ethan, that's your mom, I whispered. Don't be silly. Boys, we're home, the voice said. Closer now, right outside. I baked your favorite, fudge brownies. They're getting cold. The scraping downstairs had stopped. There was just that voice, sweet and coaxing, in the silent house. But it was wrong. Too perfect, like a recording of his mom. Not the real thing. Then came a knock. A soft, wet sound, like something damp smacking the wood. Ethan? Noah? You boys okay in there? You're awfully quiet. Ethan? I mouthed, but no sound came out, and he sat there, rigid, his eyes pleading silently. The doorknob turned left, then right. Then it started rattling, harder, faster. Boys, this isn't funny, the voice said, the sweetness cracking, turning sharp and rough. Open the door. A massive thud hit the door, and the frame creaked. I scrambled back, my back hitting the wall. The voice changed. It was low now, guttural, like it was choking on itself. IKNOWYOUREINTHERE. The wet knocking came again, frantic now. A high, thin whine joined it, like wind slipping through a broken window. And from under the door, a thick, black liquid oozed into the room, slow and heavy, smelling of rot and wet earth. Ethan moved, crawling to the bed and pulling the comforter over himself, a trembling lump in the dark. He'd retreated into his own fear. The thing outside went quiet, but it wasn't gone. I felt it, waiting just beyond the door. That I stayed against the wall, watching the door, my breath shallow and ragged. Ethan shook under the blankets. For me, this was one night of terror. For him, this was his life. Curiosity, the kind that's gotten me in trouble before, fought with my fear. I needed to know what was out there. I crept forward, silent on the carpet, the stench of decay growing stronger. Noah, no, Ethan whispered from the bed, muffled. Don't look. But I had to. I knelt and peered through the keyhole. At first, I saw only the dim hallway, lit by a sliver of moonlight from a window at the end. Then it appeared. It wasn't human or animal. It was a thing of sticks and shadow, impossibly tall and thin, like a scarecrow made of nightmares. Its arms were gnarled branches, its body a swirling mass of dust and darkness with no real shape. It wore his mom's checkered apron, stretched over a hollow chest. His dad's old baseball cap sat on a head that was just a shifting void. It had no face, only emptiness. In one twig-like hand, it held a framed photo from the living room, a family picture. It raised the frame to its void face, mimicking his mom's smile. It reached out with a blackened, skeletal arm and tapped the door. Thump, thump, thump. I jerked back, clamping a hand over my mouth to keep from gagging. My mind couldn't process it. This wasn't something that had snuck into the house. This was the house, a thing that were stolen memories like clothes. A new voice whispered through the door, and my blood froze. Noah? Why were you hiding? Your mom's worried sick about you. It was my mom's voice. Perfect. The voice she used when I was little, calling me in from the yard. Homesickness and horror hit me like a wave. I wanted to be home, but I wasn't. The thing chuckled, a dry, rustling sound like dead cornstalks in the wind. It knew it had me. "Let me in, Noah," my mom's voice said, soft and venomous. "I'm here to take you home." I slid down the wall, my legs giving out. Shame burned as I realized I'd wet myself. I looked at Ethan, still under the blankets, and the water bottle he'd pointed to. It wasn't a joke. It was survival. He knew. The thing started scraping the door, slow and deliberate, like a knife being sharpened. It kept whispering my name in my mom's voice, promising safety if I just unlocked the door. Hours dragged by, and it didn't stop. It spoke in voices I knew and voices I didn't, offering food, warmth, an end to the night. The scraping never let up, patient and maddening. Fear turned to anger. Anger at the thing, at the family who'd built this cursed house, at Ethan for not saying anything. "Ethan," I croaked. "Wake up." He stirred, peeking out from the blankets, his eyes red and terrified. "Is it gone?" he whispered. "No," I said. "Tell me what this is. No more lies. What is that thing?" He flinched, hugging his knees, staring at the door. "I don't know what it is," he mumbled. "We call it the Shadow Man. It's always been here, since my family built the place." He spilled the story, halting and broken. His great-grandfather had built this farmhouse on land that felt wrong from the start. Something was in the walls, in the floors. A deal was made, never spoken but understood. By day, the house was theirs. From 9 until dawn, it belonged to the Shadow Man. "It gets lonely," Ethan whispered, a tear cutting through the dirt on his face. "It plays, copies people, uses stuff it finds to make itself a body. The apron, the cap, the photo. It's getting worse," he said, his voice shaking. "It used to just make noises. Now it tries to get in. The rules used to work. Stay in the room. Don't look. Don't listen. But now it wants more." His eyes met mine, heavy with guilt. "It wants someone new." The truth hit me like a punch. The sudden invite. The fear in his parents' eyes. The deadbolt. "You brought me here for it?" I asked. "No, I didn't want to," he cried. "My parents said it was too strong now, that it wouldn't leave them alone anymore. They thought if it got someone new, someone outside the family, it might back off. For a while, he'd brought me here as bait. His parents hadn't left. They were in their own locked room, listening, hoping the thing would take me. Then the scraping stopped. The whispers died. The house went still, like the world was holding its breath. "What's happening?" I whispered. Ethan's eyes widened. Footsteps came from below, heavy. Thump, drag, thump, drag, up the stairs. No tricks now. The game was over. The steps stopped outside our door. Silence held for 3 seconds. Then a massive blow hit the door, splintering the wood. The deadbolt groaned. Crack. Cracks spread from the lock. Wood dust drifted down. "It's never done this," Ethan whimpered, crawling to the corner. "It's never tried to break in." Crack. Bang. The deadbolt tore free, and the door swung open with a low moan. I in the hallway. I saw it. No void now, it had built itself. Its legs were old fence posts, its arms rusted plumbing pipes. Its chest was a tangle of chair slats, and inside it, my backpack pulsed like a sick heart. Its head was the living room chandelier, glass prisms dangling like teeth. A single bulb flickered wildly, like an eye. A voice came from it, a chorus of every voice it had stolen. Time. UP. It stepped into the room, a grinding, creaking mass of wood and metal, reeking of rot and sawdust. Ethan screamed, his voice swallowed by the noise. Panic took over. I grabbed a baseball trophy from the desk and hurled it. It smashed into the chandelier, shattering glass in a spray of light. The thing staggered, shrieking like 100 broken machines. IT gave us a second. "The window!" I yelled, dragging Ethan, who was frozen. My hands slipped on the window latch. It was stuck, sealed shut with years of paint. The thing recovered, its broken glass face glinting. It raised a pipe arm to strike. "The bed! Help me!" I shouted. Ethan snapped out of it. We shoved the heavy bed frame, flipping it to block the thing. It crashed into the mattress, its legs, made of table legs and wire, tangled in the sheets. It roared, tearing the bed apart. We were trapped, the window unyielding behind us. "The sun," Ethan gasped. "It has to hide before sunrise." I looked out. The sky was black, no hint of dawn. We didn't have time. The thing freed itself, coming for us, slow and certain. It raised a hand of twisted kitchen knives, bound into a claw. Then I saw it. A heavy-duty flashlight behind the TV. That a desperate idea hit me that I dove for the flashlight, grabbing its cold weight. The thing was on me, its chandelier face looming, the bulb flickering. I flicked the switch, and a blinding beam hit it square in the head. That IT screamed, a sound of pure pain. The light didn't burn it, it unraveled it. Knives fell from its hand. A fence post leg cracked. The beam was poison to it. It raised a pipe arm to block the light and stumbled back into the shadows. And so began the longest night of my life. That I held the flashlight like a weapon, its beam keeping the thing at bay. Ethan crouched behind me, whimpering when it moved in the dark. My arm burned, and I knew the batteries wouldn't last. The thing tested us, lunging, and I'd drive it back. Hours passed in this standoff. The beam started to dim, flickering. "It's dying," I gasped. "Hold on," Ethan said, staring at the window. "Just a little longer." The thing sensed it. As the light faded to a weak glow, it charged with a final roar. Then, a faint gray line appeared on the horizon. Dawn. The thing hit me, knocking the flashlight away. I fell, and it loomed over me, its chandelier face close, the bulb's flicker reflecting my fear. A single ray of sunlight broke through the window, touching its back. IT froze. Then it collapsed. The chandelier shattered into dust. Pipes clattered down. Chair slats unraveled. My backpack fell among the debris. All that remained was a pile of junk and a thin layer of gray dust, stinking of decay. Sunlight poured into the room. I lay there, panting. Ethan sobbed against the wall. We'd survived. Footsteps came from the hall. Human ones. His parents' door opened. They appeared in our doorway, ignoring the wrecked room and the pile of debris. They looked at me. No relief, no joy, just cold disappointment. The nightmare wasn't over. Their plan had failed. The thing that was the house would be back when night fell. I was the one who got away, and they'd never forgive me for it. I won't share my name or pinpoint the exact street. Let's just say it's a weathered corner of Detroit, Michigan, where the city's glory days are a distant memory. The neighborhood is a patchwork of sagging brick row houses and squat apartment buildings, their facades chipped and stained, squeezed onto streets barely wide enough for a delivery truck to scrape through. I've called this particular 5-story walk-up home for most of my 28 years. The building's older than my mom, maybe even older than my late grandpa, with creaky wooden stairs, peeling wallpaper, and pipes that groan like they're auditioning for a ghost story. The lights flicker when the wind blows too hard, and the heat's a gamble every winter, typical for this part of town. Every old building has its quirks, and ours was no exception. The radiator in the hallway clanked at odd hours, like someone tapping out a code. The third-floor landing had a stubborn draft, no matter the season. Mrs. Carter's tabby cat, who roamed the halls like she owned them, would sometimes freeze at the top of the second-floor stairs, staring at nothing, her fur puffed up before she bolted back down. We all had our explanations. Old pipes, bad insulation, that damn cat's just crazy. You tell yourself these things to keep the world making sense. Life's tough enough without inventing monsters. But apartment 4C, right across the hall from my place, wasn't just a quirk. It was a mystery wrapped in dread. For over 2 decades, that apartment had been sealed tighter than a bank vault. A heavy steel padlock, crusted with rust, hung from a thick hasp bolted into the door frame. The door itself was solid oak, its dark green paint flaking to reveal gray wood beneath, scarred by time and neglect. No one went near it. No one dared. When I was a kid, just after we moved in, my mom asked the landlord about 4C. Mr. Hargrove was old even then, a wiry man with a face like crumpled paper and eyes that didn't invite questions. "That place ain't for rent," he snapped, his voice sharp enough to cut glass. "It's my business, not yours. Leave it be." Mom never asked again, and neither did anyone else. Hargrove lived in the first-floor unit, a recluse who shuffled out only to collect rent or fix a leak. When he got too frail, his daughter, Linda, took over handling repairs and paperwork. But even she shut down any talk of 4C with a tight-lipped, "Don't go there." For those of us on the 4th floor, especially me and Mom, living across from 4C was like sharing a wall with a ghost. It wasn't just the lock or the silence. It was the sounds. Not loud, not dramatic, but wrong. Late at night, when the city's hum faded, you'd hear a faint scratching from behind that door, like nails dragging across wood. Sometimes, a low murmur, too soft to make out, like someone whispering secrets you weren't meant to hear. Worst of all was the hum, a deep, pulsing thrum, like a generator buried somewhere in the building's bones. It didn't belong in an apartment that, as far as we knew, had no power, no water, no nothing. These sounds weren't constant. They'd come and go, often in the dead hours before dawn, when the world felt too still. At first, Mom and I tried to explain them away. "It's just noise from 4B or 4D, she'd say, though we both knew those apartments were occupied by quiet tenants who slept through the night. "Maybe it's the wind," I'd offer, even though the sounds were too precise, too deliberate. Over time, we stopped pretending. The sounds came from 4C and they weren't normal. Then there were the other signs. The patch of floor right in front of 4C's door was always cold, even in July when the building baked like a brick oven. Step there, and a chill would crawl up your legs, sharp and unnatural. Stray cats that snuck in to nap on the stairwell avoided that spot like it was cursed. They'd slink up the stairs, pause, then detour around it, eyes wide, tails low. Mrs. Carter swore her tabby once hissed at the door and refused to go near the 4th floor for weeks. Mom had her rituals. She'd sprinkle salt across our threshold, muttering prayers under her breath, especially when the sounds from 4C were louder than usual. "Just in case," she'd say, avoiding my eyes. My stepdad, Ray, who moved in when I was 12, played the skeptic. "It's rats, or maybe the furnace acting up," he'd grumble, but his voice lacked conviction. Rats didn't whisper, and the furnace didn't hum like that. As I grew up, 4C became my obsession. By my teens, I was consumed by questions. What was behind that door? Why was it sealed? What made those sounds? I started listening more closely, trying to decode them. Was the whispering in English or something else? Did the scratching follow a pattern? The hum, did it ever change pitch? I'd lie awake, ear pressed to my bedroom wall, straining to hear through the plaster and brick point one night. When I was 16, I did something stupid. After Mom and Ray were asleep, I slipped into the hall with a flashlight. The building was quiet, the air heavy. I stood in front of 4C, my breath shallow, and pressed my ear to the door. The wood was ice cold against my skin, the chills sinking into my bones. First, nothing. Then a sound like a clock ticking, but wrong. Slow, uneven. Ticked silence. Tick-tick. A longer pause, then a noise like a deep, shuddering breath, too big for any human lungs. My heart pounded. I swore something was watching me, its gaze pressing through the door. I bolted back to our apartment, locking the door behind me, my hands shaking so bad I dropped the flashlight. That experience didn't kill my curiosity. It fed it. I started asking around, talking to the older tenants. Mrs. Dorsey, a retired nurse on the second floor who'd lived here since the 70s, was the most forthcoming. One day, as I helped carry her groceries, she leaned in, her voice low. That apartment was locked up before Hargrove even bought the building, she said. Back in the 50s, a family lived there. Nice folks, or so they seemed. Then one day they were gone. No trace, no note. Cops came, found nothing. After that, the door was sealed, and it's been that way ever since. They say, she hesitated, glancing up the stairs. They say something bad happened in there. Something that don't belong in this world. Her words sent a shiver down my spine. Bad how? And what did she mean, don't belong? She wouldn't say more, just shook her head and shuffled into her apartment. Another tenant, Mr. Alvarez, who lived next to us, had his own stories. He was a nervous guy, always checking his locks twice. He told me his daughter, when she was little, once stopped dead in front of 4C while playing in the hall. She stared at the door, eyes wide, then said she saw a glow under it, like a faint, sickly light. Alvarez yanked her inside and banned her from the hallway after that. He also mentioned a smell musty, but with a sharp edge, like charred wood or old incense. It makes my stomach turn, he said, like it's warning you to stay away. These stories only deepen my fixation. I started keeping a notebook, jotting down every sound, every oddity. I sketched the door, the padlock, the hallway, trying to make sense of it. I even researched the building's history, digging through old city records at the library. The tenement was built in 1912, changed hands a few times, but there was nothing about 4C specifically. No mention of a crime, a fire, or anything to explain the lockdown. It was like the apartment didn't exist on paper. My dreams didn't help. They started when I was about 18, vivid and suffocating. In one, I stood before 4C as the door creaked open, revealing a void so dark it seemed to swallow light. Something moved in that blackness, huge, formless, coming closer. I'd wake up gasping, my room feeling too small, the walls too close. Another dream had me inside 4C, standing on a floor that wasn't there, surrounded by endless space dotted with faint, fading lights. I felt like I was falling, but there was no ground to hit. Those dreams left me rattled for days. When Hargrove died a few years back, Linda took over the building full-time. She was in her 40s, practical, less intimidating than her dad, but just as cagey about 4C. One spring, fed up with the mystery, I teamed up with two other tenants, Jamal from 3B and Sarah from 4D, to confront her. Jamal was a mechanic, skeptical but curious, who'd heard the sounds himself. Sarah, a grad student, was new to the building but already creeped out by the cold spot. We figured three of us might get further than one. We caught Linda in the basement, sorting through her dad's old files. She looked wary when she saw us, but led us into her office that smelled of coffee and mildew. We laid it all out. The scratching, the hum, the cold, the stories. First, she tried to laugh it off. Old buildings are like that, she said. You're hearing things. But we didn't let up. We told her about the whispering, The way the cats avoided the door, the smell Alvarez described. Her expression changed, and she went quiet. Finally, she sighed and leaned forward, lowering her voice. My dad. He made me promise never to touch Foresee. When he bought this place, it was already sealed. The guy he bought it from told him to leave it alone, said it wasn't just an apartment, that it was tied to something. Something old, something bad. Dad believed it. He said the sounds weren't from anything human, that they came from somewhere else. He told me there were nights, specific nights, when it got worse. The cold would bite, the sounds would get louder. He said to stay away, especially then, to keep everyone safe. Pressed her. Tied to what? What's somewhere else? She shook her head. I don't know, and I don't want to. Dad was scared. Okay? Really scared. He said keeping that door locked was the only thing holding it back. Her words hit like a cold wave. Holding what back? Sarah asked, but Linda just stood up, signaling the conversation was over. Just leave it alone, she said, echoing her father. That meeting didn't satisfy me. It made me more restless. If Foresee was dangerous, why leave it there? Why not tear it down? Brick it up? Anything? And what were those specific nights? I started tracking the sounds more obsessively, noting dates, times, even the weather. I noticed the hum was louder around the solstices, the scratching worse during new moons. It felt like Foresee was alive, following some cycle I couldn't fully grasp. Life kept moving. I got a job at a hardware store, helped Mom with bills, tried to ignore Foresee when I could. But it was always there, across the hall, a silent accusation. The sounds never stopped, the cold never faded, and my dreams grew darker. I'd see that void again, those dying lights, and wake up feeling like something had followed me back. Then, last month, everything changed. Linda was struggling. The building was a money pit, leaky roofs, faulty wiring, a boiler on its last legs. She started talking about Foresee, not to us but to contractors, inspectors. Word spread that she was considering opening it, maybe gutting it to rent out. The extra income could keep the building afloat. When we heard, panic set in. Jamal, Sarah, and I tried to talk her out of it, reminding her of her dad's warnings, her own words. You said it was dangerous, I told her. You can't just ignore that. She looked torn, bags under her eyes. I know, but I'm out of options. The bank's breathing down my neck. I'll get it checked first, okay? I'll bring in a pro to make sure it's safe. Maybe get a pastor to bless it or something. Her desperation was clear, but it didn't ease my dread. Pastor? Against whatever was in Foresee. I didn't buy it. Still, she was set on it. She hired a contractor, a guy named Carl, a big man with a toolbox and a drill who didn't seem fazed by the stories. Just an old door, he said, chuckling. Probably stuck from years of sitting there. It was a Friday afternoon in late October, gray and chilly, the kind of day where the air smells of coming frost. Most tenants were at work or out, but I was home, off early from the store. I watched from my apartment, peeking through a gap in the blinds, my stomach churning. Jamal joined me, his usual confidence gone. This is a mistake, he muttered, standing in my doorway. Linda and Carl were in the hall, staring at the padlock. Carl plugged in his drill, the cord snaking down the stairs. The drill's whine was high and grating as it bit into the rusted metal, sending sparks flying. The sound echoed through the building, sharp enough to make my teeth hurt. Linda stood back, arms crossed, her face tight with worry. It took nearly 15 minutes. The padlock was stubborn, fused to the hasp by time and corrosion. Finally, with a loud snap, it broke free, clattering to the floor. The door shuddered slightly, as if relieved. Only the internal lock, or maybe just the door's own weight, held it shut now. Carl looked at Linda, who hesitated, then nodded. He gripped the handle and pushed. The door opened slowly, hinges screaming, revealing a narrow gap, maybe 8 inches wide. For a moment, nothing happened. Just darkness beyond, thick and impenetrable. Then, everything changed. The world went silent. Not just quiet, silent. The faint hum of traffic on Woodward Avenue, the kids shouting in the alley, the buzz of my fridge, all gone. It was like someone had hit a mute button on reality. The air grew heavy, pressing against my chest, and a cold unlike anything I'd felt poured out of that gap. Not the usual chill of the hallway spot, but a bone-deep, arctic cold that made my breath fog and my fingers go numb. The hallway's weak light, from a bulb overhead and the gray daylight trickling through the stairwell window, seemed to dim, as if a shadow had swallowed the sun. Jamal gripped my arm. "What the hell?" he whispered, but his voice was barely a breath, swallowed by the silence. Carl and Linda stood frozen, staring into the gap. Then, from the darkness, something emerged. Not smoke, not mist, but something else, fine, powdery, black as coal dust. It drifted out, slow and deliberate, like it was alive, settling on the floor in front of 4C. It wasn't just ash. It was cold, dull, lifeless, absorbing every bit of light that touched it. Then came the sound. The only sound in that suffocating silence. It was deep, resonant, like a moan from the bottom of an endless well, carrying a grief so vast it felt like it could crush my soul. It was the sound of endings, of everything. Every hope, every life, every star, fading into nothing. My knees buckled. I clutched the door frame, my heart pounding so hard I thought it had burst. Carl screamed, a raw, panicked sound, and stumbled back, his drill crashing to the floor. He turned and ran, his boots thundering down the stairs, the sound distorted in the returning, muffled noise. Linda didn't move. She stood there, eyes locked on the gap, the black ash creeping toward her, dusting her shoes, her hair. Her face was a mask of pure terror that I couldn't watch anymore. I slammed my door, threw the deadbolt, and backed away, collapsing onto the floor. The silence was still there, pressing against me, the cold seeping under the door like a living thing. I clamped my hands over my ears, trying to shut out that awful moan, but it was inside my head, echoing in my bones. My eyes stung with tears. I didn't realize I was crying, that I don't know how long I stayed like that, minutes, an hour. Slowly, the pressure eased. The city's sounds crept back. Car horns, a distant siren, the faint creak of the building. The moan was gone. The cold lingered, but it wasn't suffocating anymore. I crawled to the door and peered through the peephole. Linda was still in the hall, slumped against the wall, her face ghost white. The door to 4C was still open, that same 8-inch gap, the ash thick on the floor. It looked like a wound in the world. Bleeding darkness, I opened my door, my voice shaking. "Linda, what was that? What's in there?" She looked at me, her eyes hollow. "It's not an apartment," she whispered. "It's nothing, just cold. And the end. Everything ends in there." Her words were a knife in my gut. I helped her downstairs to her unit, half carrying her as she trembled. She collapsed into a chair, staring at nothing. I didn't know what to do, so I went back up, drawn by that cursed curiosity, that need to know. The gap was still there. The cold hit me like a wall as I approached, and the sounds of the hallway faded again, sucked into that void. I stood before the door, my breath fogging, and looked inside. Darkness, not just the absence of light, but a blackness that felt alive, endless. My eyes strained, and slowly, I saw something. Not walls or a floor, but a vast, empty expanse. Far off, faint glimmers like stars, but wrong. They were fading, winking out one by one, like candles snuffed by an unseen hand. I was seeing the end of something, a universe, maybe, or existence itself. The last light flickered out, and there was nothing. Just cold, silent, absolute oblivion. The sight broke something in me. It wasn't fear of a monster or a ghost. It was the terror of nothingness, of everything I knew, my life, my family, the world, reduced to a fleeting spark, destined for that void. I felt small, insignificant, my existence a cruel joke against that endless dark. My mind reeled. Teetering on the edge of madness, I stumbled back, hitting the wall, gasping for air. The gap in the door seemed to watch me, hungry, waiting. I knew then that 4C wasn't haunted. It wasn't evil in the way we understand it. It was a window, a portal to the end of all things. Maybe time worked differently there, or maybe it was frozen, showing the final moment of everything. I didn't care. I just knew I had to get away. That I ran back to my apartment, grabbed a duffel bag, and stuffed it with clothes, my wallet, anything I could grab. I didn't look back at 4C. I bolted down the stairs, out the front door, into the gray Detroit afternoon. The city felt unreal, like a dream I'd wake up from to find that void waiting. I walked until my legs burned, then caught a bus to anywhere, ending up in a cheap motel off the highway. I'm here now, typing this on my phone, my hands still shaking. That void is burned into my mind. The dying stars, the cold, the silence. I can't stand the dark anymore. I keep the lights on, the TV blaring, anything to drown out the quiet. When I close my eyes, I see it again. Feel it pulling at me. That I don't know what happened to Linda, to Carl, to the other tenants. Did she close the door? Is 4C still open, leaking that ash, that cold? I can't go back to find out. I don't want to. All I know is I can't live like before, not after seeing the end. How do you go back to work, to family dinners, to life, knowing what's waiting? That an old door in a crumbling Detroit tenement opens onto oblivion. I'm writing this to warn you. If you live somewhere old, if there's a locked room no one talks about, if you hear sounds that don't belong or feel a cold that shouldn't be, leave it alone. Don't ask questions. Don't open the door. Curiosity won't just kill you. It'll show you a truth so bleak, so final. It'll break you. I don't know what's next for me. All I know is I've seen the end, and I can't unsee it. God help me. God help us all.